Hello, welcome back or welcome. I'm Megan and this is Megan Read That. In today's video, I kind of want to do like a 2024 reading wrap. So just an overall like view of the year, how it went, and look to the future. So that's the plan. So it's going to be split up into 3 parts. We're going to look at my stats for 2024 first. Then we're going to look at my best books of the year. And then we're going to briefly talk about 2025 and my reading goals. So let's get into it. Also, I'm a little sick, so bear with me if I sound a little bit rough. I just have allergies and stuff. It's been real cold here. So first we're gonna look at the Goodreads stats. Goodreads doesn't really give you a lot, but I do have a separate spreadsheet that I track my reading in that we'll look into after. But according to Goodreads, I read 22,417 pages in 2024. I would say that's definitely lower than when my reading was at its height, but I'm very proud of that in comparison to like the last few years, and I felt like I really got myself back into reading, so I am quite happy with that number. And that also translates to 62 books that I read in 2025. I originally set my goal to 52 a book a week, and then I moved it up to 60 around like October and stuff, and then I passed that and hit 62, which I'm very happy with because that was 10 books over my original goal. We'll go in a little bit later about what my goal is going to be for this year. The shortest book I read was March Book 1, which was 128 pages. This was a book I read for a graphic novel class I took last semester, which was quite fun and definitely boosted up the numbers because there was quite a few graphic novels that I read for that class that were quite quick to get through. And then the longest book I read was Kings of Quarantine by Caroline Peckham and Susan Vinletti. They're the Twisted Sisters. And that was 658 pages. So it did not feel like that long when I was reading on my Kindle, but longest book I read. And then the average page length is 361 pages. My most shelved book was Powerless by Lauren Roberts. I would definitely say this was one where I was very influenced by the hype to read it, and honestly lived up. I was thoroughly enjoyed it. And then my least shelved one is Rain, which is a graphic novel. It's based on a short story by the author of Lock and Key, which is my favorite graphic novel series. And so I'd gotten this to try it out. Definitely wasn't as much a fan of it as the Lock and Key. I think I've found out that I don't really like graphic novel like single stories. I really like series, and I find that shorter stories often don't go in depth enough and I don't enjoy them as much. And then my average rating for 2024 was a 3.5. Honestly, I thought this would be lower. I feel like I was very harsh about books. We'll get into it later, but I only had like 2 official 5 stars, which is very upsetting, but 3.5, not too bad. I feel like it normally averaged like 3.7. Still definitely on the lower end, but I think that's like a good amount. I mean, I'm enjoying more than I'm not. That's always the goal. And then Goodreads also has the little like shelf of my 2024 books, so I'll just briefly scroll through that, give you a idea of like what I read. I would say that like there's probably at least like 15 books on here that were solely read for like a class, whether that be classics. I'm getting an English minor, so I took within like the total of last year I took 3 different English courses, so that definitely influences some of the stuff in here. That's what I read. Now we can look into my spreadsheet. So I get this spreadsheet from Covers with Cassidy, and this is her 2024 version, but I'll link down below the new updated 2025 version, her video explaining it and whatnot. And so yeah, that's where I'm getting all this info from. So we have books read by month. As you can see, January is not even on here because I was still in my reading slump era in January, so no books were read. March was rough. I was still trying to get into the groove of like what my reading was looking like. And then October is like definitely my highest reading month, and that was definitely because I think I read at least 5 books for some type of English class, so that is definitely heavily influencing the numbers. And then we also have pages read per month, very similar. November actually beats this out though in terms of page count. I read a lot of like longer books, whereas October was a lot more like graphic novels, shorter stuff. So November is my most read pages number. But I do really enjoy looking at the upward growth of this chart, and I just think that's a very good sign, and I just want to keep getting higher in my reading. Obviously that'll hit a point where that's not possible, but in the current time I do want to strive to just read more and really dive into it. Then we have genres. This is heavily mystery and thriller. I know some people like separate them. I find personally that very hard to do, and often don't really know which one would go into. So for me personally in my reading, I just consider them one thing and just mark it as mystery thriller. So that's gonna be 20 books and like 32% of my reading, which is like a good chunk. My second highest is going to be fantasy romance with 11 books at 17%, and then fantasy at 10 books with 16%. So if we count those as one, similar to mystery thriller, it's gonna be 21, but since I do separate those, that is a smaller chunk. And then the next one being graphic novels with 10, which is primarily class reads, but I do find those very enjoyable and quick and easy to get through. So that's primarily what my reading is. I mean, there's a few others: 2 classics, 3 romance, 1 sci-fi, and 4 contemporary. So yeah, I read 9 genres. And then we have book size, and as you can see from this, primarily they're all medium, which I count as like 300 to like 450. Small, 15 books, which that is under 300 pages. So a lot of that is like those graphic novels, stuff like that. And then large, I read 8 books, and then chunky, I read 1. So we're definitely leaning more towards that medium range. And then we have publication dates. So this is just broken up into 3 different categories, which is backlist, new release, and last year. And 42 or 67% of my reading was backlist, and with 16 being new releases, which is 25%. And that's actually a lot higher than I would think it would be. So I'm actually very impressed with the amount of new releases I got to. And then we have format read. So we have highest one being audiobook at 37%, which is 23 books. And then next one being physical at 14, 22%, ebook 13, 21%. And then mixed media is 12 books at 19%. I do need to find a way to be more specific about this in my next one, because some of the mixed media ones are me physically looking at the pages as I'm listening to it, and some of them are me switching between a physical and an ebook copy of something, and I think those are a bit different types of reading. So I do, for this coming year, want to separate it into like immersive reading or like mixed media, which is like physical ebook. So I think I'll do that this year, because I would like to see how many of those were like immersive versus just switching between ebook, physical. And then for format, 26 of those were owned, so 41% were on my physical owned TBR, and then 19 or 30% I got from Libby, 11 KU, for Hoopla, and True Everan. I just recently got Everan at the end of last year, so that's why it's much smaller. For this coming year, I did split this up so that it also has owned before like 2025, so physical TBR, and something that I've purchased within 2025, just so I can see how much I'm reading stuff that I already had. So that is one thing that I've changed for the coming year. And then if we look at our star rating, not too great. We have primarily 3 stars, with 45% of it being 3 stars, so 28 books, and then the second category being 4 stars at 22 books, or 35%. And then sadly only 5 5-stars, which some of these I did count as 4.5s, but I did them as 5 stars. 1 1-star, and 6 2-stars. Very sad to see more 2 stars than 5 stars. Not great. But for this coming year, I have split it up into half stars just because that's how my brain works best. So it will be interesting to see how it changes based on having that point star. Of the books I read, 75% of them were written by women, and then 14% by men, and then 5 were multiple authors, and 1 was non-binary. At one point this year, I sat down and I thought, when was the last time voluntarily I read a book that was written by a man? And I could not think of it. So there's that. It's not even like I actively avoid it. It's just in my reading, I so often just by women authors. It's something that I want to dive more into and like actually look at and maybe focus a video on it, and like why exactly I'm so naturally drawn towards female authors, but that's for later. But I do think that's all of our stats, so let's get into my top books of 2024. This list does have my 9 top books of 2024. I could have found one to make it 10, but these are all my 5 and 4.5 stars, and I just felt like I didn't want to find some random 4-star to add, and I would rather just have it be my top 9 books. So I'm just gonna briefly go over all of these. I don't have any of them physically with me because I'm at college, so they're at home because I'm not gonna read them because I've already read them, so I have space here for books that I want to read. So I would say that my top book was Annie on My Mind by Nancy Garden. And this is a book I read for my queer YA lit class, and I absolutely love this. It's written in like the 80s, and it's about this girl realizing she's queer and coming to terms with it. And I just found the writing so beautiful, and it was just such a beautiful time capsule of what it was like being queer at that time. I think it's just such important to like still read these stories that are difficult, that focus on like hard topics, to not forget like the past and where we came from. Switching to a completely different vein, my other like solid, no questions asked 5 stars is 5 Brothers by Penelope Douglas. I am a huge Penelope Douglas fan. I have probably read like 90% of her books. I definitely, the last few years I haven't been as active in reading her stuff, but when this book came out in like August, I figured why not, because I love Tri-Six Venom, which this book is set in the same world, and I adored it. It was so good. I just found it literally so addictive, and I was like literally turning the pages needing to know what was next. And I literally was like so tempted just to reread it after I got done, because that's just how engaged I was. And I need her to write the Brothers books. I need it. Like, I need it. Please give it to me. Give it to me, Rachel. Show it to me. So yeah, 5 Brothers follows Kirsten, and she is having like a little fling with one of the Jagger brothers. There's 5 of them, and she kind of works her way through them a little bit. Such a different vibe. So those are my 2 like solid 5 stars. Now we're gonna get into like my 4.5 stars. Some of these I might just like be being too nitpicky and could actually be 5 stars, but alas. So first we have Reckless by Lauren Roberts. I definitely struggled to fully engage in Powerless, but with Reckless, I was eating it up. I read it like right when I was reading 5 Brothers, so I was like, my reading mojo's back. I'm having a great time. Reckless is obviously the sequel to Powerless, which follows Payton, who is in a world where everyone have gifts. What's it called? I don't know. I don't have any references for these. I'm just like trying to remember. She's powerless, and that's illegal in this society, so she has to hide it, and she accidentally gets chosen to compete in these trials. And Reckless is the sequel to that. Reckless was so good. The angst was angsting. I would say that there was one moment where one of the characters did something that upset me, and I was like, could not get behind them for like the next like 50 pages of the romance, and that's the only reason it's not a 5-star. Next, we have Spectacular by Stephanie Garber. This was my last book of the year, and I love Stephanie Garber with my whole heart. I've loved all of her books, and this one was no exception. I was so excited to be back in this world, and just the illustrations were so cute. And I read this Christmas Eve, and I was just having the time of my life, and I was so excited. I would definitely say that the plot possibly lost me for like a couple pages, but I was able to get back in it. And also, can I just say, I need a fantasy romance that is the vibes of Tella and Legend. And I don't mean like a normal, I need like spice with the same vibes as Tella and Legend, because they were giving, but I recognize that this is a young adult series, so it's not gonna have that. But like, if you have any recommendations with similar vibes, please give it to me. Next, we have The Stolen Heir by Holly Black. Holly Black is another author that I've loved almost everything I've read from her, and I really enjoyed The Stolen Heir. This is set in the Cruel Prince world, but it follows Jude's younger brother, Oak, and Ren, who is the daughter of the villains of the Cruel Prince. They go on a quest. I don't want to give too much away because I can't remember what spoilers or not, but I gave this one 4.5 stars, loved it, really enjoyed it. I will say that I think I enjoyed it more having been separated from the Cruel Prince and not read it in like 4 years. I think I would have been upset and had different expectations if I had read the Cruel Prince recently, but because there was so much distance, I was able to kind of see this as its new book. I'm fucking talking so long. Next book we have is First Lie Wins by Ashley Eaton. Is that right? Let me check. Elston. First Lie Wins by Ashley Elson. I really enjoyed this. This is definitely my favorite like mystery thriller that I read. So First Lie Wins follows this girl who is a con artist, and she's working on her next mark. There's some things in her past that she's hiding from, and her employer is definitely upset with her about something. I read this a little bit ago, and I'm not sure what you know from like the synopsis, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. But I found this like super engaging. I was literally turning the pages. So yeah, really enjoyed that. My next one, which I'm gonna be honest, I read this in like March, and it's one of the only books on here that's like from early in the year, so bear with me. But it's Sadie by Courtney Summers. So I read this on audiobook, and I just really loved the podcast elements of it. It was just a very beautiful story, and I was like crying after. It was really good. I would really recommend it. It's one of those that's been on my to be read for years, and I just finally got around to it, and it's definitely worth the hype. This next one's just a short little novella, but that's Killjoy by Holly Jackson. Holly Jackson is another one of probably my favorite authors. I almost put the reappearance of Rachel Price on here if I had to add a 10th one. I was considering adding that, but I ultimately chose not to. But I would definitely say Killjoy was such a fun ride. I just love, what the fuck is her name? Pip. As someone who like likes to play little mystery games, it was very fun to read this. And I don't know, I just literally anything Holly Jackson writes, I just devour. And our final book is Home is Where the Bodies Are by Geneva Rose. This is one that I listened to an audiobook, and I was like, could not put down. Every waking moment I had, I could listen. I was putting this in. It was so addictive. I was so invested in the characters and just how the storyline was going. This follows 3 siblings whose mother recently passed away, and they have to pack up her house and everything, and they find a tape of a dead girl from when they were kids. Did I go through the synopsis of Sadie and Killjoy? I feel like, should I? Yeah. So those are my 9 favorite books of the year. I tried to keep that brief just because I don't want to like go so heavily into them since it is like January and I kind of want to turn the page and look at 2025. Which brings us to our next topic, which is my goals for 2025. I'm gonna try and keep this like brief just because I do just want to focus on enjoying what I'm reading and just picking up stuff that I want to read, because when I pick up stuff that I want to read at that moment, I read so much more. But we do have a few goals. So the big one is that I'm setting my Goodreads goal to 75 books this year. I think this is definitely attainable when looking at what I've read in past years, and I definitely think this is a number that I want to stretch to achieve, and I'm currently on track. At least Goodreads says I'm on track, so fingers crossed. But yeah, so that's the goal. Another big goal of mine is, until this month, was a subscriber of Illumicrate for 3 years. So I acquired 36 Illumicrate books over that time. You may be asking, how many of those books have you read? The answer, none. Yes, that's right. That's one of the reasons I canceled it, because they were not getting read. One of my big goals of this year is to try and read at least like 15 of them. I really want to prioritize that because they are books that I was at least slightly interested in. So that's one of my main goals for this year, is reading my Illumicrate books. And my plan is to do a couple different like vlog series that are like focused on reading just those. So yeah, that's the plan, hopefully. But also, if it's just like I'm hating them, we may regroup. Next goal, which I attempted to do this year but didn't like fully accomplish, is reading the Goodreads Choice mystery thriller top 10. So this year I read, I read 7 of them, but 2 of those I didn't finish until after, I didn't read till after the closing, like voting, and I knew who had won. So I would like to prioritize this year like reading them before the voting and winner is announced, because I think that was really enjoyable and gave me a really good insight into what kind of mystery and thriller books I'm leaning towards and whatnot. So I'm gonna try and make more of an effort this year to, throughout the year, read like mystery and thriller releases that could be in the top 10, just so it's easier in like November, December to just read those couple few I haven't got to yet. So yeah, that's one of the goals. Okay, my next goal is I'm gonna have a video, I think in the next couple of days, come out that's my 25 in 2025, which is just 25 books I would like to read. And I would like to really prioritize those. I know that like all of them are not gonna get read, but I would like to make an effort to read them and not just make the list and then completely forget about them. So that's one of the goals. I hope that that's something I can accomplish. This next goal kind of ties into that, because one of the books on the 2025 is the last book in the Throne of Glass series. And my next goal is to finish the Throne of Glass series. This is, I would say, my favorite series ever. I've only read the first 4 or 5 books, but I literally love them so much. And I've read 4 of them twice, but it's just such a complex world that I feel like I need to reread them before I finish the series. So I am going to finish the Throne of Glass series this year. And if I don't, got the cameras, deadass. But yeah, no, I want to finish them because I think I will love them, and I just need to make it a priority to read them. Literally anytime I read one, I'm like, this is the greatest work of fiction ever. A bit dramatic, but another goal I have is to balance the books. Basically, idea term was created by Drinking by Michelle, but I don't think she post any longer, but basically it's just making your physical TBR go down or stay the same each month. I haven't decided yet if I'm gonna do this like every month or if just I want by the end of the year to have less books on my physical TBR than I had at the beginning of the year. I will keep you updated on that, but I would just like to be reading more than I'm hauling. So that's one of my goals. And then another goal of mine is to finish 5 series. I kind of just wanted to have some kind of goal where I was acknowledging that I want to finish series. I think this is definitely doable. I'm not worried about it, but I just want to keep in the back of my mind that I should be finishing series. And then the final goal is just setting time aside for reading, just making an effort to designate time in every day to read, even if that's just a short amount, because I read so much more when I'm actually doing it. Who would have thought? Not me. This video is so fucking long. I'm sorry. I really should have made the like favorite books of 2024 like a separate video, but I feel like it's too late now, so this is what we got. Thank you for sticking around if you're here. If you watch this, leave a crown emoji. Sorry, I have you on a stack of books and I just saw a crown, so leave a crown. Thank you, and I'll see you next time. Bye.